This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stockbox interview. Joining us on Stockbox today is Patrick McGrath, the CEO of Blue Moon Metals, who have an advanced zinc, silver and polymetallic project in California, and they are listed on the TSXV. So, hi Patrick, how are you?
Good, thank you for having me, Mark.
Good, it's good to be talking to you, Patrick. It's the first time that you're here talking to us on Stockbox. So maybe we can kick off by you perhaps giving us a bit of an overview of the company and the project that you've got.
Sure, so the Blue Moon is our flagship project, and the project is located in the western U.S. In brief summary, it's a polymetallic VMS deposit, which means it's multiple metals. The primary output would be zinc, but because it's polymetallic, there's also high components of gold, silver, and copper as well. And to give a little bit of history, this was a past producer. It had minor production at the turn of the last century. It was about 50,000 tons, so just minor. It was Hecla that had it, which is a mid-tier producer. And then really it saw a decent amount of work in the 80s and early 90s by some well-respected mid-tier producers, and that was Imperial Metals and Boliden. Boliden is one of, you probably know well, is one of the North Europeans' base metal producers. So between those two companies, they did extensive work, like I mentioned. They did drilling, they did metallurgy, and ultimately culminated in them putting together a permit application to build a shaft and just keep drilling the deposit off at depth. And they were successful in getting that permit. So the state of California, issued a permit for them to proceed on that in 1991. Because of the commodity cycles, as they go up and down, at that point in time, it was a down commodity cycle, and it never did get built, and it really lay dormant for the next 30 years. And that's where myself and my partner, Jack McClintock, saw the opportunity and, became the largest shareholders in this company. Collectively, we own a little under 20% of the company. We took over management because we like this asset so much. And so what we envision here is that, we're really taking over the project where Boliden and Imperial left off and advancing it. We think there's a lot of exploration upside. There hasn't been any new technology on the asset in 30 years. Mm-hmm. So we've come in and drilled a few holes in the last few years and great results, like well over deposit grade. Mm-hmm. And we think we've identified some real opportunity to make this much larger. So as a VMS deposit, they're often found in pods and clusters. And here we have, one area of a couple lenses all together. And there's a high probability that there's more of these lenses along strike. And we've identified a couple of areas that we think look very interesting and could potentially be additional lenses. And so what our next step is that we want to go out and drill. And we think, there's a high probability that we can expand this or possibly even find more lenses and really make this a much larger project, which would put us on the map.
Okay. So you said there that you and your partner there own 20% of this, and you really like it. And also it's unusual, I suppose, for a company to have kind of one, I know you have another project, but one core focus. So you must really like what you see then. And of course, it's referred to as an advanced project. So what is it that you really like about it, and how advanced is it?
Yeah, so, in terms of advanced, we've seen, two mid-tier producers that took it along. And so there is some legacy permit that are in place. What they identified is about an 8 million ton deposit. So to put that in kind of contained metal spectrum, it's about 750 million pounds of zinc, about 300,000 ounces of gold, 10 million ounces of silver, and about 50 million pounds of copper. So that's what we have in front of us right now with just the current resource that was identified years ago. That doesn't include the last 4 holes that we've drilled, which we think will add to the confidence of that and possibly also increase the size of it. And even on that 8 million tons by itself, we think that's sufficient enough to put it forward on a PEA and move it forward. But we think the real opportunity is to make this much larger and turn it into a much larger operation. So, when I say advanced, it means that, we have metallurgy, we have extensive drilling that's been done on the existing asset, and we have legacy permits. And in terms of infrastructure, and this is what I think really separates us from our peer group, is that we're in an area which is already serviced by a highway, serviced by power. You've got a port that's 3.5 hours away that's already built. We're not talking about building highways, ports, rail, or anything. It's all in place. And an hour and a half either direction, there's local communities that could house your workforce. So when people look at tonnage and grade, it really depends on where you are, because you can have tonnage and grade, but if you're in the middle of the Arctic and there's nothing around you, well, that's probably a couple $2 billion spend. If you're like us, where you're right in the middle of infrastructure, we don't have to spend big money on surrounding infrastructure. We're just concentrating on the actual mill and underground operations that we would do. So when I say advanced, I mean, we already have tonnage in front of us. We already have infrastructure. Now our goal right now is to make this bigger.
Okay, good. Now, I just want to talk about the market, if I can, for both zinc and the other metals that you have there in the project. Because recently I read an S&P Global report that said that demand will outpace production growth this year in the zinc market. So, I mean, how do you see this developing as we move through the year, both in zinc, which is the primary commodity, but also with the other polymetallic metals there? What's the sector doing, do you think?
Yeah, so there's obviously a lot of research out there, and most of it points to the deficit, and that is a big reason why myself and Jack got involved in the project a number of just a couple of years ago. Everything was pointing to this deficit, and there was going to be a crunch, and we knew about this asset. We knew it was a fairly advanced stage asset, and it's way undervalued. So that was the reason why we put up our own money. We bought shares in the market, participated in financings. Every share that we participated in is, most of our shares that we own, we bought through the market as we were building out this asset. In terms of the deficit, that's what all the research points to. There's a couple of large operations that are coming to end of life. We're seeing even the refiners offering, much larger processing charges, things along those lines. And that's why there's starting to be premiums for offtakes and so forth. And that's where, we think it's an opportunity for us as an advanced stage asset, nearing engineering. We're going to be doing drilling, but then it'll be turning into engineering. And we're close to port, rail, we'll be a nearer term to production than some of our peer groups.
Okay. Now, of course, the project is located in California, USA, so the jurisdiction's very safe. Everyone knows the good government, good history there. So no need to touch really on the jurisdiction as a place to operate. But I wonder if you can tell me a little bit about who is on your team and why they're in a good position to take this forward.
Sure. So as I mentioned, my partner Jack, Jack has a deep history in the mining sector. He was Prospector of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
And he was awarded that for founding the Spence project, which is one of the largest copper projects in the world, located in Chile. And that was when he was with BHP. So you have a guy there that has found multiple mines, and he's the one who identified this project and really put it on the map. So I think he's the key, and he's the one that's identified these drill targets to find new lenses and make this thing much better. So who would you rather have? You want someone with that pedigree who's going to be finding more ore in front of you that's already done it before.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. And just a final thought then, Patrick, can you just give us an idea, shareholders, potential investors, an idea of what's to come? What's the roadmap? What's going to be happening? What activities you're going to be undertaking in the near term?
Sure. I mean, what we're planning is a very exciting drill program in the summer of 2021, so coming up here shortly. As I mentioned, we've got some really high impact targets, and then we're going to be hitting some more development targets. But with all these different drilling targets that we have in mind, we'll have a very active summer in terms of drilling, putting out assay results, and that will all culminate in an updated resource number later this year. So we'll have a lot of news flow throughout 2021. So it's going to be an exciting year for Blue Moon, and our goal is to obviously make this thing much bigger. We think it has the potential to double or triple in a not too distant future, and we think that will put Blue Moon on the map. We'll start getting a lot more eyeballs on us from some of the larger companies when we start hitting some of those milestones.
Okay, great. Well, Patrick McGrath there, the CEO of Blue Moon Metals. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mark. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.